think a common refrain that I saw on social media and I heard from our listeners this morning that I think a lot of you might share with me is that after I reflected on that fourth touchdown drive, well, the fourth quarter touchdown drive, the CJ Stroud come from behind game clinching or at least game winning drive, I feel a lot better about the Texans. It's incredible how much worse I would have felt about them if they hadn't gotten so clutch at the end. And that included a better performance in pass protection out of the offensive line. That included Daria Gumbawale. That included a lot of the things that I think you have to realize, all right, this is a team in transformation. And DeMeco always tries to remind me. Look at it. He's all happy. He look like he got a coffee endorsement or something. First question. I didn't edit these out tonight. We're just going to hang out. Okay? Just ease our way into this thing. Now let's get into it. Here's John McClain.
What do you think about the game last night, Baltimore, winning that game so decisively?
If you couldn't hear it, John McClain asked, what did you think about Baltimore beating the Bills so decisively last night?
Baltimore is a tough place to play. And the Bills have been doing a really great job all year moving the football, being explosive, and Baltimore is really seem like they have it going. So, tough place to play. We know how that feels going into it, and not playing your best there always will be a tough place to play. But we know this week, we'll get the Bills' best coming into this week.
Okay, yeah, I'm aware of that, DeMeco. I was at a watch party where the TV went out, and like an idiot, I went and watch the rest of that Baltimore game instead of just getting drunk. But, at the first half, they were putting up a fight. But defensively, the Texans, by the second half of that game in Baltimore last year, couldn't keep up with the Ravens. The Bills could not keep up with the Ravens at all last night. They tried to make a comeback, then they tried to, without Stephon Diggs, they tried to run a gadget play. And that never works out well unless it's Stephon Diggs throwing it back to CJ Stroud. So, Baltimore, hard place to play. The Bills are coming to what I think is going to be a pretty raucous environment in Houston. So the biggest thing I thought immediately when watching some of that game this morning was, man, Joe Mixon could make a big difference in this game. Joe Mixon is just at a different level completely, almost like he's a different type of human being or something than the other running backs. So there's an opportunity there. The Bills, kind of like the Texans are until Christian Harris gets back. We'll have a little more on that later. The Bills defense, they could get run on. The Texans defense, I think, plays admirably versus the run at times, but they're just light in the ass. They're out there. The only two linebackers have played all year, other than one snap out of Neville Hewitt. And I think that's because those are the two guys they feel comfortable with. They're going to play a lot more nickel anyway. But then DeMeco plays a lot of nickel. But there's times where you'd like to have some heavy bodies in there. It didn't matter as much versus the Jaguars ultimately. After the Texans had that goal line stand, they played good defense. But it's going to be a tough. Regardless of how good the Bills are or aren't, or whether they showed their blemishes last night. The Bills are a multifaceted offense, and I wish Christian Harris were coming back this week.
3-1, 4 games in, which is a goal. How do you feel about just kind of where the team is, where it stands, things you can improve on, things that have gone well?
That was a little soft at the beginning. I think Aaron Wilson just asked, "How do you feel about where this team stands?" Talking about the Texans, not the Bills.
And with where we are now, we're just excited for the next one versus the Bills. Like a really good opponent coming in to our house, so we're excited. We're fired up about this matchup. We know they're not feeling their best after the loss, and we're not feeling our best after how we won the game. We're excited about the win, but there's a lot of things to clean up, a lot of things for us to fix. We're excited to fix it off of a win, but we still have to get us right as a team, and we'll continue to work on that.
Yeah, I think I don't know. The Vikings obviously are a very good team, and they don't carry the same cachet or grudgery because they're in the NFC and you don't play them as often. These blemishes that the Texans were able to ignore, I think maybe that's why that fourth quarter felt so good. It felt like, oh, look at this. Look, a long drive, and there's no penalties setting anybody back. There was relatively sound pass protection for most of the drive. I think some of that had to do with other things, but not to discredit the offensive line, but just I think their operation changed a little bit. But also, I think they played physical on defense. DeMeco tore into them at one point. He'll talk about that in a little bit. So it's not like it washes away all sin or somehow makes everything perfect, but there is that chance that I'm hoping is that they figured some things out in that game, and that and maybe are starting to hit that upswing where after 4 games you're figuring out who you are, you're figuring out how you can use Jalen Petrie and what you can't do with Jalen Petrie on defense. On offense, you're not getting Laramie Tunsil's not false starting, but the offensive line is still getting penalties, but not on the final drive. Remember, it's that that one final drive. It washed away original sin, and we're back to pure.
Update on Christian Harris. Could he practice this week?
Christian won't be practicing this week.
Landry asked about Christian Harris, so DeMeco's talking about Christian Harris.
He's
not Christian Leitner like he so often does. Would never shut up about it in the locker room. He just does everything. No, that wasn't it at all. That's
still on the road to recovery. He's doing well, on the right track. We'll get him when we get him.
We'll get him when we get him. All right. I have no idea just exactly where Christian Harris is right now. The fact that they activated him and they're using up a roster spot is a good sign. But I just as I got with Kyle Tucker, I kind of just went into a drone zone and didn't think about it because I thought, okay, just as likely that he never plays again as he plays anytime in the next 2 weeks. So that's where we are with Christian Harris. He's not as good as Kyle Tucker yet. Okay, hasn't proven it yet.
Yeah, I had a lot of DBs, even some of the linebackers, play 100% of the snaps, 98% of the snaps through these first 4 games. Is that something that is just necessary the way you want to play defense? And how sustainable is a large snap count like that for your guys?
Okay. This was interesting by Cody. I don't know if Cody was asking more about Cody Stutes, whether he was asking more about is it sustainable to play nickel all the time or dime all the time. But it sounded more like he was asking about just the stamina or like almost like a pitch count. Linebackers, in my experience and just in general, linebackers, the only time they really come off the field is if they're the Sam backer, and then in dime they'll come off the field too. So your 2 starting linebackers getting all those reps, I wouldn't worry about it. I think from a depth perspective and maybe how many guys do they have that they feel comfortable playing other than Toa and Aziz Alshire, maybe that's more of a larger concern, but I don't worry about their stamina or anything like that.
But the snap counts is just a matter of we want our best guys on the field at that time. We try to rotate our defensive line as best we can and make sure those guys are fresh in the fourth quarter and being able to rush in those critical moments, third downs when we need them to go get after the quarterback. But with our guys in the back end, our linebackers, corners, and safeties, there's not a lot of rotation going on with those guys.
Okay, I should have just let DeMeco answer. Ditto, DeMeco. Good job with that hardball question.
Why you all were successful in the first half, what do you feel like you all did a lot better offensively, particularly also in the running game too?
So the question was, what do you do better offensively in the second half?
Offensively, our offense, we've been explosive. We've been able to move the ball. We've had drives get stalled, and we haven't scored touchdowns in the red zone as best we would like throughout this season. So we just had to continue to be as explosive as we're being, but make sure we get points off of those explosives. That really doesn't.
Yeah, so maybe I didn't hear the entire question properly. Obviously, the penalties remain an issue. I throw my hands up at this point and just kind of like I'm Kyle Tuckering the penalty situation. Okay, we're just gonna see exactly if the imaging at the beginning is good or not. And maybe it was a false diagnosis. Maybe this is actually going to be the cleanest bunch of offensive line playing son of bitches you ever seen.
Matter to me, it's like, can we play our best versus our next opponent? Like all of the.
Oh, this one, the question got cut out. What's it mean going against the Bills, who have been kind of that proverbial knocking at the door team, and maybe the Texans, something being similar, some question like that.
Storylines on the contenders and not like we're in week 5. Like, let's be the best team in week 5, and that's the only thing that matters, and that's where our focus is. If our focus gets off on anything else this week, and that won't help us on Sunday. So it's about keeping a singular focus, being locked in on the details of the things we have to do.
I almost wonder, was that question code for what's it going to be like with Stephon Diggs playing the Bills again? Are we going to have to deal with obnoxious Western New Yorkers who can't complete the 219 expressway down to 86 so I can get to and from my in-laws quickly? Sorry, I'm going on a Western New York rant. So my wife's family is from Buffalo area. So look, yeah, don't get hung up on everything. One of my favorite coaches ever, I've told stories about Frank Gantz Sr. to you guys before. That was one of his big mantras, was always, what's the next rep? The next rep. Who's the opponent? I don't care. Like he was very about just playing your ass off for this next play and forgetting the old ones, not thinking about what the score is, anything like that. You didn't call them the Cleveland Browns or the Buffalo Bills or the Cleveland Targets or the Buffalo Targets. He's an old Air Force Academy guy, so he could get away with telling war stories and then not like claiming that we were just as tough as those guys on D-Day or something. True story. Had a coach do that once. Showed an opening scene of was it Saving Private Ryan? Does that start with D-Day? I think it does. Showed the opening scene, and then the lights came on. The coach said, "Men, you guys are doing the exact same thing tomorrow. You're no different than those guys up on the screen." I'm looking at you like, I'm pretty sure I am. Like, it's a good chance I would have tried to hide in the boat before I got off. My God, definitely different.
Cade had a really nice game. First, really nice in the passing game. He showed up, really got an explosive there with CJ.
The question was about Cade Stover and Dalton Schultz blocking.
Really nice route, good hands, good finish on the catch. And on Steph's touchdown, he had the touchdown block. Like, we talk about finishing it down on somebody, block whoever's in the way, and Stover showed up there. 2 guys left him. CJ were able to get 2 of the defenders to pull out on CJ, and Cade is right there with a guy coming in to make the play, and he throws a great block. Cade's been doing a really good job blocking. Also, Dalton did a really better job of blocking. Both tight ends blocked really well in the run game.
I got lost after he said CJ pulled out and Stover was coming in. So the tight ends becoming better blockers. That would be a positive development. I have to temper some of the good things that happened in the game, even though I'm like growing more happy about the victory and realizing that the Texans are 3-1 and all of that. I thought the tight ends blocked better, and I got completely lost on where I was going with that. Next question.
Our line got better this week. They did a really nice job of protecting, giving CJ time. So I told them in the meeting, anytime your quarterback can throw for 350 yards, he's not just out there by himself. Like, the 5 guys up front did a really nice job of protecting, buying him time to go through his progressions and to make those throws, right? He escaped the pocket a couple times as well, even extending those plays even longer. But, I was pleased with the O-line and what they did, in the passing game.
Yeah, the O-line, I think he gets asked a question about the defensive line, so somebody remind me in the comments if we don't get to it. I would say a mixed bag. I think Kenyon Green's got some developing to do. That Colts game, a lot of things looked really, really good with Joe Mixon running the ball, and again, that's something that might start to help as well. But I think in pass protection, he's playing like a young player. Laramie Tunsil, I don't excuse the holds because, as they pointed out on the announce team, and as a friend of mine who is an offensive lineman texted me this morning, you don't wear bright colored gloves as an offensive lineman because it's 100% true what they're saying. It's just easier to see if you're holding something. It calls attention to it. So the IG OTs, the Instagram OTs struck again, and Laramie Tunsil's snazzy outfit on game day is he could do his jazz hands when he's happy. I didn't fall. I stayed on sides, coach. Did you see me? But other than that, I feel good about the offensive line. Based on the last play now, the last series now, one thing, they were spreading it out. CJ was sending Dare out of the backfield, and they were playing with inline tight ends and everything, but it felt a little bit more it felt like there was a little bit more natural space. And then Ngumbawale, I think, is a guy that in situations like that, if he's got a little extra space to work with, he's not going to necessarily beat linebackers on the second level or anything, but he's going to get those 5 or 6 yards at a punch like he did. So that might have been until Joe Mixon comes back. Dare Ngumbawale, even though you might think like, it was a nice flash in the pan there in the fourth quarter, there might be something more to that. He's got more punch, I think, than Cam Akers does.
Into the first half when you guys were on offense, right after the 2-minute warning, did that go the way you wanted to with timeout usage and ultimately what you were able to get there on that drive? I know you want points, but looking back, did you maybe see an opportunity to have a little bit more time, maybe use another timeout?
Yeah, I thought the drive went well. We've done a great job offensively of finishing the half with the ball and finishing with points, and that's always our goal, right? Finish with points, and that's what we've done. Offense done a great job. We just have to do a better job of coming out in the second half is where we struggle. We haven't played well when we've offensively or defensively coming out of halftime. It hasn't been great. So to get the quick 3 and out, that's been our focus. And my focus is where we have to get better is second half, how we starting drives. We're not starting the right way. We're not moving the ball enough there.
Okay, I want you guys to brace yourselves because at some point, when DeMeco Ryans is coach, the Texans might go through a rough stretch. I don't know. It'll probably be like 2027 or something. But there will be some rough stretches. And DeMeco's a defensive-minded coach. They've already multiple times this year had nice field goal drives at the end of a half. And he's going to get this reputation. And the ironic thing about it is I think a lot of people are going to assume that, classic defensive coach playing it safe. I think it's more based on the analytics of it. This is one thing that drives San Francisco fans crazy. It feels like they just soak up too much time and they're playing for a field goal instead of a touchdown. I think that's because the numbers show that it's more realistic that you're going to get a field goal than a touchdown. And then also if you can prevent the other team if you can take a possession. Remember, there's only 12 possessions in the average football game. So taking a possession away is kind of a big deal. You take away 8% of their opportunities to score. So I think it's going to seem like an old school defensive coach mentality, but I think it's more of an analytical approach to it. If that helps you feel better about it, it never makes you feel better in the moment. You want blood, as long as as long as I don't have to personally bleed for it. I want blood.
Go ahead. There you go ahead.
Coach, how would you assess the first quarter of this season for you on 4 games?
Okay, how would you assess the first quarter of the season?
For the first quarter of the season, we are where we should be. We're 3-1, and we still have a lot to improve upon. And I'm excited with where we are. We're getting better in certain facets of our game. We're getting better, and that's always the goal of the season. Is can your team continue to progress and get better as the season goes forward? We're not a finished product right now. We still have a long ways to go to becoming a really good football team. That's us handling all the details, all the small things, and being on it, and that's when we'll become better.
Any update on Joe Mixon?
Yeah, that's he was asked the same question earlier. So pretty much DeMeco, obviously, he's addressed it. It's not like he's denying it or anything. They've got issues. He hasn't come right out and said it, but I think you would agree you guys aren't playing like a team that's got a shot at the Super Bowl. Do you know how much money we're paying you? Do you realize and understand the investment we've made? And you go out and you do this? My God.
In the tank for this week,
Joe,
and they're 3-1. They're 3-1. They've played the easiest schedule in the NFL, even including the Vikings. They haven't covered the spread yet. And I know it doesn't matter if you care about gambling or not. It just shows they haven't lived up to expectations. If you want a more objective matter of, indication of whether or not they lived up to expectations, all these computer models expected better than exactly how they've performed. But the good thing is that a lot of it's sloppiness and self-inflicted stuff to a large, like even more so than penalties usually are. So obviously it's fixable. It's not like you feel like, oh God, they've got 9 guys out there who shouldn't even be in the NFL. We felt like that team recently, so we don't have to worry about that anymore.
I think will be day to day this week. We'll see how they progress throughout the week of practice.
No surprise, right?
Okay. Teaching process with CJ. CJ's really good at throwing the ball down the field, intermediate, and teams obviously are very aware of that, and that's why you guys are seeing a lot of too high. What's kind of like a teaching process of if it's not there, just check it down and keep the offense on track, versus sometimes you let him do what he does, which is sometimes being able to create and scramble and make plays. What's kind of like that teaching process?
So if you couldn't hear that, trying to find what's the teaching process behind teaching CJ Stroud when to be conservative when you're facing a lot of cover 2 and just take the check down versus when is it okay to stretch the play out? That general question.
That aspect.
Yeah, great question. There's no better example of that than the play with Dare on 3rd and 18 where they're in the too high and you can't throw the deep ball, right? They're taking away the deep ball. All defenses want to eliminate the explosives, and we've seen more 2-shell, more cover 2 for CJ, and he's done a great job of putting his eyes in the right spot and looking for the explosive, but it's not there, checking the ball down to Dare. That's a great example, and allowing our playmakers to make plays and not always trying to find a big play. Sometimes you just have to take what the defense gives you, and I think that's where CJ has had one of his best games, since he's been here on yesterday, because he took what was there, checked it down. Dare makes a big time play, and we get the chains moving. So it's all about just trusting, right? You want the big play all the time, but if it's not there, it's okay. Survive the play, get it checked down, and let's see what our tight ends can do with the ball.
Yeah, I think also with CJ, this is something I've been watching and trying to figure out, okay, at times is he trying to hold on and wait and see if Nico comes clean or comes open? The thing that I'm encouraged by is that there were a couple times in the game yesterday where I thought watching in person that, oh boy, it looked like he really just, should have gotten rid of that ball quicker and then the protection broke down. It looked better when I watched it from some better angles. So I think that he totally understands it. And the Gumbawale play was exactly the play I was thinking of. The other good cover 2 beater is Nico Collins versus cover 2. That's the one thing that it doesn't matter for the most part. It wasn't the coverage that did him in Minnesota, where he still had respect. He just wasn't 150 yards. Yeah. So if you have a Nico Collins, I highly suggest it. And if otherwise, yeah, be sure you're good with these checkdowns. And the one thing, too, Dare Gumbawale, well, at least in this game, compared to J.J. Taylor and his drops, or his drop, just these short passes, if a team's going to invite you to just run the ball and do short stuff versus cover 2, one of the reasons they're okay with it is that it's really hard for offenses to do that. They're going to make a mistake at some point. You're going to get a false start 1 out of 2 times, 2 out of 3 times with the Texans offensive line. Something like that bad is going to happen along the way. And then, you play more. Anyway, I don't want to get into the philosophy of cover 2. Good job beating cover 2 this weekend, CJ. Eventually.
Coach, I apologize if you've been asked this question already. Excuse my tardiness. Daniil said that that when they came to the sideline on yesterday, you had a pretty heated message for them as far as the defense is concerned. What were you seeing at that point to have to give them that type of speech?
So he asked, Daniil Hunter had said that CJ came over DeMeco came over and ripped into him. Why'd you do that, Coach? Why'd you yell at the nice men?
For me, the energy wasn't there. How we were playing, it just wasn't there. My play style of how I envisioned our defense playing, it wasn't there. We weren't playing our style, and I did not like the sideline demeanor. I did not like the energy from our defense, and I want to correct it while we still had an opportunity to correct it in game and not wait until the game is over to talk about it, but we had to get it fixed right then.
Yeah, the one thing about yesterday is that they were throwing a lot of bodies at Will Anderson and Danielle Hunter. I mean, at times they were just they're stacking guys up. The frustrating thing was that I thought the Texans people were complaining about the Texans not blitzing, and I'm like, they're blitzing, they're just not getting there, they're not working. They had some nice blitzes that ended up being versus the run that worked out well, but I mean, you look at the sacks yesterday, and Eric Murray. I did not confuse Eric Murray for Danielle Hunter. I think it's twofold. I think they need better push up the middle from the defensive line tackles. That I think Danielle and Will are trying to be very disciplined and not just run past the quarterback and be hyper selfish and everything. And they're doing a pretty good job of constricting the pocket. I know this isn't what people want to hear about, potential sack artists and whatnot, but it's got to be more rush from the inside, I think, and hopefully with DeMeco Autry coming back. And what, Tim Settle's emerging, and some of these guys, maybe they'll start to find their groove for who they want in there in specific situations. But it's got. I was disappointed. I thought they were going to crush the Bills, obviously. So from that perspective, I expect that it's going to be more consistently week to week, lots of pressure, but just not quite what we want it to be right now.
What's the message to Steven Sims after not pretty rough go of it for him yesterday? What's your message to Steven Sims?
So Steven Sims,
Sims just
for those of you who missed it, muffed a punt, got an unsportsmanlike. He was responsible for what happened at the drive after. Anyway, he was responsible for at least 7 points.
And for every player, right, you just have to be accountable, and that's the message to everybody. Like, yeah, we all wish we didn't make mistakes with plays, but mistakes happen. You move on. Like, you just move on. We can't go back and correct it. We just move on.
Yeah. Man. He had another dicey moment where I thought he was almost gonna do the half fair catch signal, which I think is unsportsmanlike now. If you try to do that, I did not feeling awesome about the fact that in 2 of our 4 games, it's been way closer than it needed to be because of a special teams issue. This new kickoff rule has got Frank Ross's mojo all messed up. He's got to figure it out, man. He's got to figure it out.
Aside from the explosiveness that Josh Allen presents, what do you think makes the Bills dangerous?
What makes the Bills dangerous other than Josh Allen?
What makes the Bills dangerous? I think they play complementary football as a team. Like, the offense does a great job of running the ball, the RPO, getting the ball out to their playmakers. They do a great job of keeping drives going, and they score touchdowns when they get in the red area. So, in their defense does a really good job of, disguising their coverages. They're very sound. You can tell they're well coached. They're sound, and they play well together. Those guys fly around. Smaller defense, but these guys, they fly around, they hit, they play together, and just collectively as a team, they play good complementary football, and I think that's why they've been really good over the past few years.
The Bills' defense is interesting because right now they're the third worst rush defense. I feel like they could have been, okay, let's say if somebody only run for 100 yards and not 199 yards against them, they would still be still bottom half run defense, even if they had just faced Cam Akers and a crew of other Cam Akers or something. So I don't think it's fluke completely that Derrick Henry ran on them like they did. They're light. They're a lighter defense. They play very disciplined. There's a lot of similarities between the Bills and the Texans defense in some ways. So I think Joe Mixon's going to be huge. Joe Mixon will just be flat out huge in this game, and he makes the offensive line, who again, other than Kenyon Green, I think have started to come a little. They've started to congeal a little bit if they could stop making penalties. But that's the potential. Joe Mixon's going to change this football team.
Nico, you had 7 explosive plays the first game. You had 7 yesterday. Did you go in with design that way, even though they played 2 deep coverage? How many of them were off schedule when Stroud was running around and found receivers?
John, I believe, said there's something about how they had a lot more explosive plays, and what did you see or something?
Oh, yeah. We were always looking for the explosives. Most of CJ and Nico connected on a lot of those. I can't remember the number. Nico had at least 5 or 6 of those explosives. That's that connection that you see. And we want to be explosive. I feel like anytime you get an explosive, you're setting yourself up to score points. So as many explosives as we can get on a drive, we want to do that. So that's always our mindset going in. But you have to earn those, and you earn those explosives in the pass game by you got to be able to try to run the ball to get defenses to kind of get out of the 2-shell, to get the backers to bite up so you can get the explosives and get the ball over the second-level defender's head.
Yeah, and also be able to run the football when they do that, okay? Let's do that. I think it was interesting because one thing we had talked about last week was that, man, the Bills play a lot of man defense. They're not good at it. Their secondary's all banged up, and yet they still played a lot of man versus the Bills. So the Bills, the Jags come in and they play a lot more zone than they typically do. And what happens? It felt like it was Justin Jefferson all over again, except that he was in the body of Nico Collins, and he was playing against the Jaguars. It felt like, oh, they're gonna play zone, and Nico Collins is gonna run crisp routes and be open over the middle and be able to turn it up and go. And so a team that plays man a lot, I'm guessing the defensive coordinator is up in the booth going, I told you why we don't play. These guys can't play zone. Yeah, Nico Collins, that was just classic cover 2, outrunning the backer or the safety who was covering him, hitting the CJ hitting him right between the 2 cornerbacks. So that's where we are with that.
Thank you.
That's it. Thank you, man. Thanks. I neglected all you guys. I apologize. Let's get to some questions and/or insults. Bills fans haven't. It's too early in the week. Yeah, boy, I bet Bills fans. You know what it's like up there, man. Not that they're like all of a sudden trying to fire Josh Allen or anything, but that's a big. That would be a fun day on sports radio. A day like this. Because when you as a host are angry or feel gobsmacked by something, it makes it a lot more fun. You get to feel real emotions. Not talking about DVOA and nonsense like that. Hoping the home field advantage and the players being pumped to wear the new jerseys gives us an advantage. If that's what it takes, Johnny, I don't care if they're motivated that much by jerseys. I'll take it. Jazz hands, yeah, with the red gloves, offensive lineman with a guy. You gotta look different, you know. You gotta have a little flair. How many flare buttons you got, Laramie? Ooh, look at this one. It says "Have a nice day." Yeah, because they're yellow. Looking at other teams, I am very thankful for DeMeco. Feels like DeMeco needs to be less buddy-buddy with the players and demand excellence more. Oh, I forgot to address that when they were talking about him ripping into Danielle Hunter and the rest of the defense. Yeah, like the other thing too, I've seen people say that DeMeco needs to be more aggressive with the officials. Not everything makes television. There was a point yesterday, I think in the second quarter, Aaron Raybold, our engineer, one of our engineers, was like, hey, said Seth, he was DeMeco was like going after the linesman, and the linesman pointed to the umpire, and DeMeco went out and was really giving an earful to the umpire. So I don't think he's screaming or anything, but I do think DeMeco, in a polite way, tries to stay on top of the officials, and they're not. I know some people think you need to yell and scream at the officials. I don't like it. I don't like it when men do that in general. As somebody who was a young man used to do it all the time to officials, it's disrespectful. Guy's doing his job. You can quiz him aggressively and everything, but all these guys get rated by the coaches after the team. That's where you can do the real damage. I've learned in life. The pen and the IRS. Oh, what's up, Dark Tooth? Oh yeah, like it up, please. Like it. If you like it. If you don't like it, just whatever. Dislike it then. Last drive was textbook. Oh, yeah, we were talking. Okay, I got to zoom down a bit. We've talked about so much since then. Is this going to be a Diggs revenge game? I'm not getting that sense that that would be that important for Diggs. I feel like he's at least trying to move on. I mean, he said all the right things, including when he's not getting ridiculous production. He's still saying all the right things. And I feel like, usually it doesn't, you can say, oh, it's just lip service, or it's easy when it's easy when everything's going well and everything. I do feel like he's not naturally wired that way. So I think the fact that he's making a concerted effort, at least, or maybe he's just gotten older and just if it feels like really helping the young guys out, all that. I don't care why. He's making the effort to do all the right things. I don't care whether how close it is right now. They're 3-1. I think it's going to be just fine. So I don't think Diggs needs to have a monster day versus the Bills. Diggs, this is going to sound like Kevin Walter praise, but there were a couple of plays. I want to say both the Cade Stover reception, but then also the Dare Gumbawale on the right sideline. That was Diggs that cleared the route out. Like, he had a certain gravity that pulled defensive back out of his zone enough that it created openings for those guys. So in that regard, at least, aside from his actual production, I think he still does have a gravitational pull to him. And, CJ getting efficient with going to the running backs, going to the tight ends, it's a good development. 2 more weeks without Autry. Yep. That's when we were talking about getting the interior pass rush going. We should put British in the backfield more often. I think right now, as long as Cade Stover and Dalton Schultz seemingly have improved as blockers, but I gotta remember too that you see him go from the Vikings to the Jaguars, and it's not quite the same. So it's like going from level 5 of a video game to level 4. You look like you're a really good video game player all of a sudden. Then you got to go back up to level 5. The Bills are level 5. I'd put them right on par with the Vikings right now. They're not as confusing as the Vikings. So for CJ and the receivers, I don't think it's as much of a challenge, but just a good, solid defense and vice versa, obviously. Should I? Yeah. Yeah. I take it back. I've screened. No. I think I go to enough high school games and everything that I'm always like, all right, yeah, guys, come on. This guy's making like $30 for this. Just lay off. Plus, I never want to be in a situation like Roger Clemens, which he was cleared of. No, it's not. No, not what you guys are thinking of. Remember back when he was watching his little league, his son's little league game? I don't remember which one it was. It was like when they were really little, and some umpire got really upset and I guess thought that Roger Clemens was talking smack to him or something, and he ended up ejecting Roger Clemens. And it turned out like everybody in attendance said, we don't know what happened. The guy was just. Roger Clemens just sitting there. So I don't know what became of that. I think the story went away, but just because there was absolutely nothing to it. But it was strange. After watching the NFL for the last 4 weeks, our schedule seemed harder or easier than it did when the season started. It's, at least according to John Crumpler, I think it was John, somebody put out a stat this morning that the Texans, it was Houston Texans, have had the weakest schedule so far. I think it seemed, okay, this is what it is. It seemed harder because the Texans haven't played well. The Jaguars are not a good football team. The Colts are 2-2. I mean, we'll see exactly whether Flacco's the guy or not. So I would say they were not good when the Texans played them. And then obviously the Bears had a full, the Texans teed off as pass rushers in that game because they were able to blitz the hell out of them and because Caleb Williams didn't have any answers for it. So all those games felt harder than they should have felt. So it's not that the schedule is harder, it's that the Texans aren't as good. Like I would say the schedule, I thought Minnesota was certainly going to be difficult based on their defense and just exactly what they might do at quarterback. So it's felt just the schedule feels just fine. The Texans just haven't measured up to it the way we thought they would. I want to see the 1-2 punch of Mixon and British Brooks. Oh, yeah, that'd be fun. That would be fun. Yeah, I think so to get back to that, I think that Schultz and Stover, just by having them out there, but also having them able to play fullback, that's the thing that puts more stress on the defense right now, because you've got two bona fide receiving threats out there, and it's just that's the trade-off. If they maybe start to have a little success running the ball, and maybe they start thinking like, yeah, you know what? Maybe we can really run the ball and go old school with an old school fullback, like that 270-pound beast for the Ravens, whatever the hell that guy's name is. My God, that dude is a brick poop house. I know we don't get Harris back this week, but you got any inside knowledge? I have all nice. Say nothing. I genuinely don't, though. I wasn't inside information, but a couple weeks ago, I didn't think that, just based on people's observations of where they could see him, that it wasn't. It didn't look like he was somebody who was going to be close. Atascocita football. Atascocita versus Summer Creek on Friday. 2 top 5 teams in Texas playing in Humble. Man, Friday. I don't know. It's in my head. Don't hold me. Don't hold me to that. But it's intriguing right now in the moment. I'm gonna get going. I went way too long. I got chatty about stupid stuff. So look, I'm still trying to cut up some plays that I can just watch. Some of the ones that really either scare me, excite me, titillate me, frighten me. I'll power rank the plays in order of how excited I am versus how frightened I am going against the Bills. But I had some internet issues here earlier today. Either that, or I think we're not supposed to say mild concussion, but I might be mildly concussed, which would excuse me from saying mild concussion. Okay. There's no small concussions. There's no large concussions. There's just the one I have right now. Oh, subscribe.